Well, after 4 years as a player and 16 years in various staff roles, Antoine Pettway will be across the court from Alabama as he takes his Kennesaw State team to Huntsville for the Rocket City Classic. I'm Charles Branch. This is Crimson Crossover Cross Court. I'm pleased to be joined by Kai Millette, host of the Owl Chat podcast. Kai, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Charles. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I again appreciate you joining us. I know you're on the road right now, and maybe I'll start there because we're going to talk Kennesaw State basketball. But this Kennesaw State's got a great football program, baseball program. Kennesaw State's becoming a name across the country. How has it been as far as a Kennesaw State fan the past couple of years?
Yeah, it's been cool to see. So I'm still a student. I'm heading into my last semester, actually this upcoming spring. But where the state of athletics is at this point, as compared to 4 years ago, is very different. And it's been cool to see a lot of that growth. Like you said, not just in basketball, but across football and baseball, non-rep sports.
So I know when we before we got on, you talked about you covering the team a little bit as far as writing, but you also are the host for the Owl Chat podcast. What got you into kind of the sports media side of things and covering Kennesaw State?
It's a good question. I've always wanted to work in sports in some capacity, and figured out I was a decent writer and just kind of wanted to be around it, and ended up at Kennesaw State, where unlike the Georgias or Georgia Techs of the state, there's not as much interest in athletics, and it made it a lot easier for me to do cooler stuff a lot quicker. In regards to covering basketball and football. So it was just kind of a perfect storm of things. I got in right at the right time when popularity really started to grow, both at a local level and a national level. A lot of that being due to the success of football and basketball.
So Alabama fans are very familiar with Antoine Pettway. He's now going into his third year at Kennesaw State. When he got hired, he was replacing a coach that had just taken all the NCAA tournament. But how has his reception been, and how would you assess his first 3 years as the head coach for the Owls?
Mostly positive. Year one, half of the team left and followed Amir the previous Florida, and they were sort of in this weird middle area where they had retained a few of the guys, primarily or most importantly, Terrell Burton and Demond Robinson from the tournament team. So it was like, let's do these guys right. Let's try and make one more push with this half of a core that we still have from the previous year. On paper, I mean, it was the second best season the program had ever had at the time. I think they went 15 and 16. But they tailed off really in the back half of conference play, and sort of had a disappointing end of the season. But it's year one, and it was sort of almost like a year zero for Petway. And then last year, they hit the lottery when they signed freshman Adrian Woolley, who got a whole lot of money to go transfer to Louisville, and I think exceeded a lot of our expectations. And they were not squandering a 12-point lead or whatever it was to Liberty in the conference semifinals away from probably going back to the tournament. So this year also sort of a reset. A lot of the freshmen that were brought in last year are gone. They either went up or down or just left the team for other reasons. So very new look this year, but because of what the standard has become for Kennesaw State basketball over the past couple of years, people at least expect a competitor, and I think this year is set up to be that.
So I was looking at the roster, and Simeon Cottle, who's a senior, has been at Kennesaw State in his entire career. And I think you mentioned that you got a lot of freshmen and sophomores, but all of them seem to be played at Kennesaw State. They haven't played anywhere else, at least to what I saw. Is that the type of program that Coach Petway's trying to build? Is guys that even in this transfer portal era will stay and be committed to the program?
Well, that's becoming the model not only at Kennesaw State, but I think a lot of mid majors, where it's hard to retain quality players because of the transfer portal. Everybody's getting paid, and when the NIL budget isn't what it is at not only the high major programs, but some of the richer programs in your conference, like the Liberties or maybe even the New Mexico States, you kind of have to go youth heavy, and you got to get maybe the under the radar 3 and 4 star guys that used to be going straight to the Power Four level, but now that those programs can backfill with mid major transfers, those guys are forced to play at the lower levels of college basketball. So I mean, the last 2 years have been very youth heavy, and unfortunately, when it comes to playing freshmen, it comes with a lot of inconsistency and figuring things out on the fly. So it's been sort of a reset each year, and I expect that to continue. Hopefully, continued success brings in more money, and they're able to retain some more of these guys. That is sort of the model.
Alabama's an up-tempo team. Kennesaw State's an up-tempo team. How has that style, how have fans accepted that style? Everybody wants to play fast, but not everybody can do that. And I know Kennesaw State's a top 10 KenPom team as it relates to tempo. How has that style been embraced by the Kennesaw State fans since Coach Pettway got there?
When it's clicking, it's a blast to watch. When you're putting up 100 on teams, and just outrunning people. But when you have a bad shooting day, man, it can be a miserable time. Luckily, we've won more games than we've lost, so it's been more fun than sorrow, I guess. But yeah, it gives you an identity, and I think that's always a good thing for a program. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan, right? For a long time, their identity was running the triple option. Sure, that was not embraced by everybody, but it sort of puts you on the map. So now when you bring up the advanced analytics and statistics, Kennesaw State gets mentioned a whole lot more, because they play this freakishly up tempo style of basketball.
So Kennesaw State currently is 8-3 on the season. I know they've got a good win against Georgia State and several others. They did lose to South Florida, who Alabama just played. But how would you assess the start to the season so far for the Owls?
The non-con schedule was mostly a joke. They're 8-3, but 3 of those wins are against non-D1s. We all hate playing those games. There's no point in them, in my opinion. You just risk injury. And then the other wins really aren't all that impressive. Georgia State, I think, is like 2-10 right now. They're really down, but you clobbered them, and it's always good to beat the crosstown rival. And then the other D1 wins, Jackson State's not very good. Florida Gulf Coast has a chance to be okay in the ASUN. They lost to a bad Oral Roberts team. Like, supposed to win, and they've dropped the games that they're because despite playing, maybe their worst half of basketball, first half, they had every chance to win the game down the stretch. So still, I think figuring out what this team is going to be, as weird as that sounds to say, 11 games in. And I don't think we're going to learn much more against Alabama, but once we get a few weeks into January, I think we'll have a good idea.
If you don't feel like this team, you're going to learn much about this team against Alabama, what are you hoping for in this game against Alabama on Sunday?
I mean, competitive basketball. It's going to be trial by fire for some of the freshmen. Like, you and I have said, it's a young roster. Amir Taylor has been the starting 5 for the last couple of games. He's quite raw, to be honest. And he's shown some great potential and also shown a lot of room to grow. And I think for guys like him, guys like Trey Simpson, who they really like, and then some of the other returners like the Braden Lews and the Ramon Seals. I think it's going to be a great experience to play against some really high level college basketball players. I'm a big believer in loading the non-conference schedule against good competition, so you are equipped when you do get into the league games that really matter for you.
RJ Johnson, I know he's a sophomore. He was originally committed to Alabama and is from the Huntsville area. What are you expecting from him, or what are you hoping from him when he comes back home on Sunday?
I just want to see RJ play confidently on offense. He's been in and out of that starting point guard role. It's been him and the freshman Caden Rickard for most of the year, and Rickard's sort of usurped that number one spot, and RJ's been coming off the bench. Look, we all just want to see RJ go downhill because he's a bowling ball. Nobody wants to get in the way of that guy. There's a reason he was ranked as highly as he was in Alabama. There's a reason why he was committed to Alabama. Um, he missed all of last year due to injury, and he could still kind of see it through the non-con. And he's still just working on getting back to familiarity and comfortability with the game of basketball. So I just want to see continued confidence in him to get it going offensively.
Alabama's really struggled with defensive rebounds. They're allowing teams to continue to extend possessions, get second chance points. I know Kennesaw State currently averages about 47 rebounds per game, and that may be elevated again by the tempo. But do you feel like Kennesaw State can find some success on the glass and give Alabama some challenges as far as getting defensive rebounds and getting out and running on the offensive side for Alabama to try to score points?
It's going to be an interesting thing to see because the little I've dipped into Alabama, it doesn't seem like they've got that consistent big paint presence necessarily. I know they've got the center who was really good at the mid major, the European kid, I forget his name,
No
but
Williamson.
I know he's been sort of sparingly coming off the bench. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see because Kennesaw State's your typical mid major that's not going to have a 7-footer who's really talented. I mean, at just about every mid major in the country, you're either going to see the big man's going to be 6'8", 6'9", and skilled but undersized, or he's going to be 7 foot, 7'1", just not very good. So it's going to be interesting to see like the young Amir Taylor, who's a 6'8", 6'9" type of big, and Braden Liu, who they like to rotate into that 4 or 5 spot against. It's Amir Allen. That's the Alabama forward, right?
Yeah, Amari Allen. Amari Allen.
Amari Allen. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting thing to see. You mentioned the tempo elevating that. I think playing the D2s, the NAI schools early in the season also elevates that. You'll rebound the ball 60 to 70 times a game against those schools.
So getting past this game, conference play is right around the corner. What are your expectations for Kennesaw State in Conference USA this year? And I know you're ultimately hoping to win the conference championship, getting back in the NCAA tournament. What are your expectations currently for this team in conference play?
I mean, after falling short last year when it felt like they were a couple bounces away from playing in a conference title game that they should have won, the expectation under Pettway becomes, hey, we want to at least contend for conference championships. They're going to need some of these young players, just like they did last year, to grow up quick and grow on the fly. But the cliche in college basketball is by the time you get to the conference season and then the conference tournament, the freshmen aren't really freshmen anymore, right? So it's all about developing on the fly. But I think the expectation is still going to be to contend and compete. People are not going to be happy if this team finishes in the bottom half of the conference. The world's not over if they don't win the whole thing, but they got to be in the mix there at the end.
So I've asked several guys that are still students that are covering sports for their schools. What's the next step for you? Where are you hoping to take your sports journalism, sports reporting career once you graduate?
Ooh, I'll have a much better answer for you in about a week. I'm set to take the GRE in a couple of days, and depending on how that goes, I'm going to look into grad school and what that looks like financially. If that happens, that might be a couple year delay in the career, but might get me somewhere better. If not, the plan is just to continue finding a way to either talk or write about sports for a living. That's the whole goal.
Well, I know a lot of Alabama fans want to keep up with Kennesaw State because of the connection to Coach Pettway. So where can they follow you? Where can they hear more about Kennesaw State and the rest of their basketball season this year?
Yeah, you can follow me at Kai Millette. That's KAIMILLETTE, and then at our podcast at Owl Chat Podcast, spelled exactly how you would expect. I'm actually in the car with my co-host. We're going to the bowl game together. If you want to follow KSU Al Hal for some a little bit more off the rails KSU coverage, he's also a good follow. So
We'll make sure to put those links in the show notes as well so people can follow it. And as you mentioned, you're on the road and this is basketball, but you are going to a bowl game. So, real quick, give us a preview because we've got a lot of Alabama football fans as well of the Kennesaw State bowl game and what you're hoping for the Owls in their bowl game as well.
yeah, it should be a fun one. A lot of people were disappointed with the location because everybody wanted to go to New Orleans, myself included. Instead, we're heading to not really Myrtle Beach. It's Conway, South Carolina. We get to play Western Michigan, who won the MAC on the beautiful teal field at Coastal Carolina. And, for some of the football fans who don't keep up with the group of five, there are the narratives and debates, at our level too of which conference is better than which other conference. And it's cool that we get to play another conference champion from our level, maybe settle some of those debates.
Western Michigan's also coached by a former Alabama football player in Lance Taylor. So you got tons of Alabama connections that you're either going against or you got at Kennesaw State right now. Kai, really appreciate your time. Y'all be safe on the road and good luck to the Owls the rest of the season after Sunday.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.